Hello, I'm Gary Zukav, and I'm grateful to be here, and I thank the Boulder Bookstore for allowing me to come and to speak in this intimate internet way in which we can be face-to-face, and I can share some things with you that are important to me, and I hope that they are important to you also. They're all contained in this book, which I've just finished writing, or it just came out, Universal Human. Now, what is a universal human? A universal human is authentically powerful, and we can talk about that in this recording. A universal human is beyond culture, beyond religion, nation, ethnic group, and gender. A human whose allegiance is to life first and all else second. So if I were a universal human, which I'm not, there aren't any now, but there will be. However, there are emerging universal humans everywhere, and you might be one. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to speak to you. If I were a universal human, I would say my allegiance, I would say it this way: I'm a universal human first, and American second. I'm a universal human first, and male second. I'm a universal human first, and white second. I'm a universal human first, and a grandfather second. I'm a universal human first, and everything else second. So here's some questions that I've been asked to answer. What inspired you to write this book? The universe inspired me. I suggest that you not believe anything that I'm going to tell you just because I've written a book or because I say it. It's a window through which I've come to see the world. It contains a window, and I hope that looking through that window is helpful to you as it has been helpful to me. But instead of believing anything I say, I will suggest that if I say anything that resonates with you, that you experiment with it, that you take it into your life and see if it produces constructive consequences for you. And if it does, experiment with it some more. And if it doesn't, throw it away. Don't try to wear a shoe that pinches. This book is about authentic power. It's about a new consciousness, an epic, unprecedented consciousness that is transforming everything in the human consciousness and in the human experience. It's only about a generation old, and within a few more generations, every human will be touched by it. So let's call this multi-sensory consciousness, the new consciousness. Multi-sensory because now we have a sensory system more in addition to the sensory system of the five senses. And this sensory system expands our perception. It expands it far beyond what the five senses can see and taste and hear. The universe inspired me to write this book. What is in it does not belong to me. It belongs to the universe. And as you create authentic power, as you align your personality with your soul, as your multisensory perception allows you to begin to question whether you are only a body and a mind, whether the world is just random and that it has no inherent purpose. As you begin to ask yourself these questions, you begin to see that your capabilities are more than you thought, that your aspirations are changing. And ultimately, you are beginning to see that love is all there is, and love heals everything. Well, people have heard that before, but how do you create love? How do you create love? How do you experience love when you're angry, when you're jealous, when you're vengeful, when you're resentful? Creating authentic power is the way that you do that. It's becoming aware of all of the parts of your personality that prevent you from loving experiencing them fully, never suppressing, repressing, or denying an emotion. And then in that moment, when you're feeling that impulse toward anger or jealousy or resentment or righteousness, instead reach for the healthiest part of your personality that you can. One, for example, that you experience as grateful or appreciative, caring, content, in awe of the universe, patient, and act from that part of your personality to the very best of your ability while a part of your personality, another part, wants to shout, wants to be righteous, wants to withdraw emotionally. That's creating real power, authentic power, which is the alignment of your personality with your soul, which is an understanding and an experience of power that comes with a new consciousness. And that new consciousness may now be touching you. If you've listened to this recording this far, I suspect that it has. Why did I choose Universal Human as the title for your book? It's not my book, as I just described. It belongs to the universe. I chose it because it seemed to be the appropriate title. The subtitle is Creating Authentic Power and the New Consciousness. Universal Human is the next stage in our evolution. We're in an enormous evolution right now. An evolution from five-sensory perception to multi-sensory perception. From the understanding of power as the ability to manipulate and control, to the understanding of power as the alignment of your personality with your soul. And the intentions of your soul are harmony, cooperation, sharing, and reverence for life. How do you define authentic power? I define authentic power this way. Authentic power is the ability to distinguish within yourself the difference between love and fear, and choose love all the time. No matter what's happening inside of you, such as anger, resentment, jealousy, or what's happening outside of you, such as a 9/11 type event. When you can do that, you're on a spiritual path and have been. If you can't do that, maybe now is the time to begin to experiment with the possibility that being able to do exactly that, distinguish within yourself between love and fear and choose love all the time, is now an evolutionary requirement for all of us, collectively and individually. What's one of the most surprising things or actions that keep people from growing spiritually? Fear. It's not surprising. Every time you're any of those things that I mentioned, angry, jealous, resentful, righteous, anytime you have an obsessive thought, such as, I've got to have her, I've got to be a millionaire by the time I'm 27, I've got to be recognized, I've got to be something. Anytime you feel a compulsive impulse, such as perfectionism or workaholism, anytime you feel an addictive craving to food, sex, gambling, shopping, pornography, anything, all of that is fear. And all of that prevents you from loving. And that means it prevents you from growing spiritually. Growing spiritually means becoming loving. Spiritually means having to do with your soul. What is one simple thing we can all do to help bring in an era of humanity based on love? Change yourself into a loving person. There's no other way that you can change the world. The world around us now, excuse me, is a world that we've inherited from five-sensory humans. Five-sensory humans are limited in their perception, as I've mentioned, to the five senses. They evolved by surviving, and they survived by pursuing external power, the ability to manipulate and control. Now, we are becoming a multi-sensory species that evolves by growing spiritually, and grows spiritually by creating authentic power. The world that we see around us was built by 5 sensory humans, was built by, with, for external power, the ability to manipulate and to control. External power is evident in it everywhere. Money is a symbol of external power. The more you have, the more power you have. Badges, weapons, guns. Corner offices on high floors. All of these things are symbols of external power. Now that we're becoming multisensory, we're in a new evolutionary phase. And the pursuit of external power produces only violence and destruction. This is a big change. External power used to be our good medicine. Now it's our poison. It used to be the way that we evolved, and now it prevents us from evolving. So the point of all of this is that you cannot change this world around us, which is built on and expresses external power, with external power. You'd just be adding more to what this world is already made of. The only thing you can do is add something different, radically different, and that's authentic power. That is the ability to move through the earth school with an open heart, without attachment to the outcome. Many of the things that I'm suggesting to you that you consider are objectionable to the intellect, and that's putting it very mildly. The intellect goes into riotous objection at the very thought that internal transformation can bring about external transformation. It puts labels on such a thought: solipsistic, narcissistic, foolish, new age. Those are perceptions of 5 sensory humans and evaluations by the intellect. The intellect and the 5 senses are designed to work together. The intellect shows 5 sensory humans the most effective experiences that will help them pursue external power. But it cannot grasp multisensory perception or multisensory experiences. For that, to communicate that, to comprehend that, requires the higher order logic and understandings of the heart. Creating authentic power, you might say, is a heartfelt, lifelong meditation. It's heartfelt because it has to do with emotions that are very important to creating authentic power. And emotions have to do with the heart. They require the heart. They require your focus on your emotions. 5 sensory humans think emotions are nuisances. They're obstacles to pursuing external power. Multisensory humans know that emotions are fundamental to creating authentic power, because it's through your emotions you know when fear is present in you and when love is present in you. And as we've just seen, you need to know that in order to become authentically powerful, because you need to develop the ability to cultivate love in you when it's active and challenge fear in you, not act on it when it's active. What have you been reading during the pandemic to stay hopeful? Not much. I've been writing, and I don't need to stay hopeful. Hopeful for what? Well, there's lots of things to be hopeful for, but they all come from lack of trust in the universe. And I've been watching the pain and the suffering that this pandemic has caused. People worried about being able to keep their homes when their jobs have disappeared. Business people praying that the market will come back and they can hold on to their business. People homeschooling children and really being stretched thin by that. By that I mean frightened parts of personalities have been activated by the kids, and they're feeling anger, frustration, inadequacy. All of those are experiences that need to be challenged in order for you to move beyond the control of them. That's why you have them. They're not your obstacles to spiritual development. They're your avenues to spiritual development. But when you look at the Earth School, you will eventually begin to see, with your new multisensory perception, that everything you encounter in the Earth School serves your spiritual development. Let me put it another way. Everything you encounter in the Earth School serves the purpose of bringing the consciousness of your soul into the awareness of your personality. Some of those experiences are not experiences the personality would choose. The pandemic is clearly one of them. The pandemic is very important. It's going to be seen as a turning point in human behavior and evolution. The turning point in human behavior and evolution went virtually unnoticed about a generation ago, but it's here, and it's transforming us radically. The pandemic, is another turning point in this new consciousness. When you read this book, Universal Human, you'll see it's got 4 chapters just on the pandemic. It's got a lot of chapters, so that's not most of the book. But each of them are called the miracle of the coronavirus. The miracle of the coronavirus. Why? The miracle of the coronavirus. The pandemic. The miracle of the coronavirus. The podcast. I'm going to create a podcast called Universal Human. And what I meant to say was the protest that erupted after George Floyd was murdered. Oh, we've had in our history, especially in the United States, many, a horrendous number of black people killed by white people. But there was no global protest. Why is there a global protest now? Because now we are becoming a new species. We are becoming multi-sensory. We are no longer willing to live in a world in which life is a cheap commodity. But this world reflects the frightened parts of our personalities. And that's why we need to change ourselves in order to change this world. When you see that everything that occurs in the Earth School supports you in your spiritual development, what more can you be hopeful for? What else is worth hoping for? And as you create authentic power, you don't have to hope for creating authentic power. You don't have to hope for love. You don't have to hope for forgiveness, because you become that. Loving, forgiving, authentically powerful. And then hope disappears from your life. Hope is an experience that originates in fear, in lack. And yet, it's vital. It's as vital as sunshine. We need hope. But hope pulls us toward that which we must acquire ourselves in order to give the gifts that we were born to give, in order to move into the fulfillment and the joy and the meaning and the vitality and the creativity that is waiting for us. Let's see. Is there anything else you want us to know about your book? Well, this will give you a pretty good idea of what's in it, but there's a lot in it. It looks at each of our disintegrating social structures and examines why they are disintegrating. It's not because they're broken, it's because they're obsolete. They're all based on external power, and they're being replaced by social structures that are built on authentic power, on the values of the soul. Rather than reading a short passage from my book, I've chosen to give you a little bit of content from the book and where it came from. It came from the universe, and it came from my heart. And that's really ultimately the same. Your heart and the universe, that's the same. As we become authentically powerful, we see that we need to change the world, and we also see how. We begin to realize that the fear and love in the world are the same fear and love in us, not like it, the same. And so if we want the world to become loving, we must become loving. There's no two ways around it. But isn't that really what you want to do? Are you not fatigued with anxiety, overwhelm, continual judgment, you of others and others of you, apathy, anger, resentment? Would you not rather live in a world of gratitude and appreciation and caring and patience? I would also. But I know that I'm never going to until I create those things in myself. That's what Universal Human is about. It's about the next phase in our evolution beyond multisensory human. It's as hopeful as hope can get. Hopeful, helpful, and filled with my gratitude for being alive and for you.